or call facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. However you're doing so, however you're partaking in the show and getting ready for this holiday weekend or extended weekend, depending on what y'all's Monday status is. And we'll talk about ours here in a little bit as well. But we are doing one of our most important days of the week. Hesitate to call it a holiday, but, well, we definitely think it's important. Free-for-all Fridays. That's what we call it, meaning that as much as El Paso is in the name of the show, and that's what we have to focus on. And El Paso taken as maybe more the borderland region overall. So the stuff that affects us here in our broadcast area and the things that people living here deal with and want to talk about. On Fridays, for those unfamiliar with the concept, we open up those floodgates. And much like that hot sauce spilling onto the highway earlier, we're going to get into it, and you might want your hazmat suit. Yeah, that actually happened today. I'll talk about that in a minute here as well, because we talk about everything going on, because there's so much more. I mean, the Supreme Court just spiking the ball at the end of this week now, wasn't it? Really releasing a whole lot of issues that are definitely having quite a lot of implications in just a variety of ways. I mean, not that any session of the Supreme Court is inconsequential, but just a hell of a start to the 4th of July weekend there, isn't it? As we got a bunch of people chiming in already over on the social media on a bunch of different ones there. Mondo Moncada over on the Twitch stream. Howdy to you as well. Ida Beza Gardner, happy Free-for-all Friday with the wave to you as well. And Crazy Texan with the wave over on the YouTube. So that's just an example of how you can add your 2 cents in a variety of different ways. And also with those likes and react, like Rick Reyes and Ida Beza Gardner do appreciate it. Helps us with all those algorithmic things. And there's a lot going on even as we're headed into this holiday weekend. It's not usually the case. There's this theory / paranoia that happens around major holiday seasons, that unless you've like really worked on some stories within news media in general, that nothing happens. And that doesn't feel like it's the way this time around. At the very least, a lot going on today. Like, seriously, as if it wasn't hot enough in our area, as we also have Edgar Ortiz on board with us over there. There's literally was at least estimated about 100 gallons of hot sauce spilled on I-10 West near Cielo Vista. And like so much, and people may be thinking like, oh, well, it's just a little bit of hot sauce. Like, before you go grabbing, a taco or burrito or anything else that you want to dunk in hot sauce, the guys responding to this from the El Paso Fire Department, and there's a couple of videos circulating on social media already, having to wear hazmat suits. And you may think, oh, what, can't take the hot sauce? Like, you know what? I'm all about hot sauce. I've attempted making my own in the past with very mixed results. But they're also talking about, like, think about the size of even like a Tabasco bottle or your favorite one. And you're not talking about gallons of it at a time. Not quite sure what kind it was, but literally like opening up the back of the truck and just spilling out. Yeah, they did have to do hazmat. So I no blame at all for them, because I mean, do you ever think about like when you get hot sauce in your eye, get a little bit too much, and you're like, whoa, getting up the nose there, that kind of thing. Now imagine it's hundreds of gallons. Like, they had to bring out dirt, like huge amounts of it, at least dirt. Maybe it's more technical than that, but it just looks like a pile of dirt to me, to contain it. I always got to wonder what's doing the concrete underneath it. So, yeah, the heat wave continues in El Paso, which is, I never quite expected a exclamation point on it like that. I think in my neck of the woods here, we didn't quite peak 100, but from our news partners at KFOX 14, did register a high of 103 today. So we're still on track for some of that record-setting frequency of 100, and the rest of this solid week, as we hear in the updates from the forecast, looking straight through next week and through the end of it, still looking at those triple digits. So it feels like irony, doesn't it, then, that it's so hot, we've literally got hot sauce spilling onto the streets there. Anyway, of course, the other thing that we do on Free for All Fridays is we get to those phone lines here. So if you want to get on there, add your 2 cents, That number to do so is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, like we got the number at the top of the screen there for those looking over on the social media. And we will be taking those calls throughout both hours of the show. And just as a gentle reminder, as we often have, you're calling in there, particularly in the middle of the segment, not like during the break or immediately leading up to the break. It might get put on hold for a minute, but then we might pop you up there live as well. So, as we also have Austin Redfern chiming in over on there, definitely agreeing with the happy free-for-all Friday and what's up with that. And RJ saying, wow, I love hot sauce and will always love my salsa, hazmat condition 3 or not. I guess if you ever, it's been cleaned up now, to my understanding, so not to try to raise anyone's hopes. It was messing up most lanes of traffic. I think they opened one, if I'm looking at it right, by the end of it, but cleaned up by now. So no, this is not your chance, though it could have been technically earlier, to go and as close as you're going to be able to bathe in hot sauce, which I am not recommending. Let's make that clear. But if you're really that committed to it, you got to wonder about missed opportunities sometimes. Anyway, again, phone lines might get popped up live, so just be Johnny on the spot on the phone there with you. Again, that number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have a call on the line with us here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
It's Jerry in Northwest.
Hey there, Jerry. What's on your mind?
Hi, Andrew. Hey, your giveaway site is not taking the words when it says we're entering the wrong word, or I am. Whenever it comes up, this last one that they gave out was credit. Okay, and it didn't enter, and it's been that way all day long.
Oh, it's been off of it. So okay, that.
Yeah.
Let me take a look at it here. So, tell you what, I should be. Okay, I don't have the list in front of me of what is supposed to be the words here today. I might be able to get it, though. I think we're end of the day show here. I think a lot of other people have checked out for the holiday weekend, but I will certainly pass that along, that if things are off schedule and not being announced at the right time, that is frustrating, to say the least, I'm sure.
Okay, so we're a word off, basically.
Sounds like.
Us, huh? Anyway. That's another reason I called is to ask you if you had a business, would you hire somebody that gave away the secrets of your business?
I mean, if we're talking like how I make a sandwich, maybe I wouldn't care. Though I say that almost as a joke, but also I'm aware of like non-compete clauses for like sandwich making shops. So that's almost a serious thing that has happened. But if we're talking like proprietary technology, secrets that we've developed, put money and time into developing, well, then we do get into legal concerns and issues that have been, there's a reasonable level to use like non-competes and NDAs. And I guess if someone is bound by those, well, that's a serious mess around and find out if you're going to try to go against them.
How about state secrets, national secrets?
Mm-hmm.
To keep the country safe.
Yeah.
Would you hire somebody that gave away those and stole them?
I mean, we're at a whole different ballgame entirely, frankly. I mean, among other things, there could be criminal implications involved with it, particularly if it involves their work. So in general, without knowing any specific situations, just to the hypothetical there, I would be treading very carefully with an emphasis towards no, all other things being equal.
Okay, how about Joe Biden admitting that he did when he had a party and a gathering for the Prime Minister of India this past week? He admitted that he stole state secrets and sold them on video. You can look it up.
Yeah, I mean,
look it up on YouTube.
Yeah, some comments coming about that as well.
And if he said it without knowing he said it, then he is so senile that he cannot manage to be president of the United States. Just like a drunk says things, admits things when they're totally inebriated. You've seen people like that. In fact, I've been one of them people like that. But that's a different story. So anyway, people are complaining about Donald Trump, and you're getting a lot of those people that complain about Donald Trump and state secrets. But I never hear them complain this week about Joe Biden and him admitting that he, and in fact, it's being even covered up on the national news. You don't hear about it on the national news. but he did say that. And if you're somebody that's another nation, like India, the prime minister in India came over to talk to our leader, then our leader admits that he stole and sold state secrets, basically. I mean, what kind of impression is that for not only the Indian leader, but our allies? And of course, India could be an ally. I don't know anymore. But those are questions I have and things that's come up this week that everybody's pointing the finger at Donald Trump when the same thing's happening with our current president, Joe Biden.
So yeah, what you're talking about there was, I believe, the direct quote from him during those meetings with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi saying, quote, "I started off with you and I sold a lot of state secrets and a lot of very important things that we shared." And that was part of the video. And I think one of the major ones being cited on that was U.S. Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Georgia Republican. And that part of it, and I will say that the additional context that is being reported on this is saying, he went on to say, "Now all kidding aside," end quote, "we're teaming up to design and develop new technologies that are going to transform the lives of our people around the world." Now, is that a joke I would have made given the current climate? No, I'm going to agree with say that entirely.
I wouldn't have, but it also could be an admission because, you know, the situation that he's in with his cognitive capability, where he shakes hands with somebody that ain't even there when he turns around after giving a speech. You know, I'm sorry. I mean,
there's a lot of.
I don't think it was made as a joke.
That's what he said. Take it or leave it if you want to. I will say that kind of one of your core points there about essentially the capability, mental or otherwise, for this here is a part of the thing that I've had an issue with, not even just recently with any particular presidency, but of the trends over the recent ones, let's just put it that way, has been towards, I mean, like, it takes a while for people to get into power, right? To develop, bases and get towards all these things. But the septuagenarian, octogenarian rule that we've had the trend of for the better part of this last decade, at the very least, is one that I'm not quite sure I'm in favor of. I mean, there's a lot of accusations that already happened to politicians about being out of touch, about not knowing what's going on. And I'm not saying that if this is a phrase that's going to come up probably in the political rhetoric. I call this, in the next 30 to 50 years or so, the phrase "someone born this century" is probably going to enter into the politics when it comes to that. But I will say that finding someone maybe a little bit more in touch and those kind of things is, as much as anyone may like a particular candidate or aspects like that, sure. But that's one of the things that I don't like armchair quarterbacking anyone's mental state or the medical diagnoses, anything like that. I am not a doctor nor a psychiatrist, nor have privy access to their personal medical information, giving them an examination, etc. But there are certain questions that arise, and I think that focus, and I mean, this has not been just in presidential politics within the last decade or so. I mean, what was it? Strom Thurmond was, or at least at one point, was the longest serving representative, having served well into his apparently senile years. So yeah, it's not a trend that I'm happy with, and kind of one of the focuses, I guess, that you could argue is a part of the whole term limit situation, because particularly when you get a lot of people who have been in politics for a long time, they've been in those situations and then end up moving on to bigger and better ambitions. So may or may not have something to do with that. I don't know. I think I'm open to debate on that point.
Well, yeah, part of that Convention of States is term limits. That's going on around that Texas didn't continue again to be part of, which, I'm not sure if they can add that to the special meetings or their special call
the special sessions.
He does the next one, if he does the next one. But anyway, that's neither here nor there for me right now. I'm just worried about our current president,
which is a fair concern.
With the situation of the world where it is right now, Russia almost being taken over, by a coup.
Yeah.
And
the whole Wagner situation.
Yes. And they having nuclear missile capability.
Oh, yeah.
The replacement for Putin might not be as friendly as Putin because they are not friendly towards the United States. That generation has been taught the United States is the evil empire, as we have been taught that Russia was the evil empire or part of it. So it's those things that consider me because, and especially with the capability of how fast missiles can travel nowadays. Sure. It used to be an hour and we had capability may get the information that a missile was coming, but now it might be down to 10 minutes. We don't know.
Yeah, that was
thank
very.
you for taking my call, Andrew.
Yeah, sure thing.
But I would look into why the giveaway of you guys giving away that's not working today real good.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Day,
I appreciate the feedback on that and appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right, and with that, tell you, we got to take that next break right now. But coming out of this, I'll talk a little bit more about that whole Russia uprising, mutiny coup, depending on who you ask, and who ended up doing what and why. Was anyone involved with that, I'd never be sleeping in the same place again twice in a row for the rest of my life. But in any case, let's get back to that break and then back to those phone lines here again. If you want to get on the line, it is free for all Friday. So already diving into those calls. So that phone number to call is, of course, and available right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heavy traffic remains I-10 westbound for fire department activity west of Hawkins. 2 right lanes are closed. Expect slowing from Lee Trevino on 10 West. Also an accident reported on Montana Avenue at Rosewood Street. You could use Yandell or Grant Avenue to avoid delays there. And fire crews on scene for a medical emergency. Stanton at Maine. That's your latest El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
We'll have the story of our 4th president, James Madison, from Hillsdale College President Larry Arnn. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
There are choices that can change your life.
Like the choice to start routine colorectal cancer screening at age 45.
It's one of the most common cancers for women and men, and it doesn't always have symptoms.
But there's good news. Routine screening can catch colorectal cancer early and even prevent it.
And there's even better news. You have screening options.
Make the choice to put your health first. Talk to your doctor about your screening options or visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
From iHeart Podcasts, Supreme, The Battle for Roe, tells the story of the unlikely champions behind the landmark case Roe v. Wade, starring Maya Hawke as 26-year-old lead attorney Sarah Weddington.
We're challenging the Texas abortion laws in federal court.
And Academy Award nominee William H. Macy as Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun.
Time is not the most important factor. Getting it right is.
Listen to the podcast Supreme, The Battle for Roe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-334-2266. That's 800-334-2266. 800-334-2266.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And a little bit more detail actually coming up with what was going on with that hot spot situation. I-10 near Cielo Vista westbound, again, primarily cleaned up now, but it could have been actually a lot worse, apparently, that it was, well, it's continued working on the hot sauce spill as of just under an hour ago, or just about an hour ago at this point, that 100 gallons had leaked from the containers within a semi that hold a total of 4,400 gallons. So there could have been a lot coming more out of there. And so a lot of pictures. It's not so often that you see that kind of leakage coming from, it's you got to see the pictures there. Some being posted up by Anchor with our news partners at KFox 14, Robert Holguin, and they got the video over there as well. Just a little bit nuts. And I actually did a double check on it, showing my age. John Strom Thurmond not even making the top 10 anymore of the combined longest running U.S. House and Senate time. He's actually ranked number, where was he? 14th in terms of overall span of time, and then in actually uninterrupted time, he was 15th. But number one there is John Dingell, who has, if I'm doing my math right, little over decade and change in addition to that amount. So yeah, there is a lot of that. I'm kind of asking, when was the spill? Apparently still in progress, or at least I'm sure the cleanup part of it going right now. Some of that posting, according to Enrique Duenas, El Paso Fire Department Public Information Officer over on Twitter. So, yeah, there's just a lot going on and around our area. And yeah, still in those 100-digit heat, but probably not going to be ending that anytime soon. Of course, if you want to be commenting on the line yourself, that number to do so, as exemplified by the first caller, and we got more calling in right now. That number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KT. As I mentioned, I would be talking a little bit about the whole Wagner Group, either, depending on it, mutiny, protest, march that came with guns, or coup attempts. I think that coup was a little bit overwrought. I mean, there was at the very least some equipment damaged or blown up, depending on there was a whole lot of data feeds, not quite as much as coming out of Ukraine itself here, but that was, I'm not even going to lie, a lot I was paying attention to this past weekend, and then come to Monday to find out Snell made about 100 miles away from Moscow and then ending up stopping it out of there. So that's a whole complicated situation, and comes to the idea of having primary reliance on a lot. I mean, there's a joke out there that's existed that Russia is the third best army in Ukraine, and that one kind of bore it out with what the Wagner mercenaries is one of the largest private military organizations, not even just active, but in the world. Then marching all the way, I mean, there was serious responses happening in Moscow, them activating some of the curfew and civil defense measures, and the fact that it just ended up, just say that I didn't ever quite know how to say his name, Perozin. I would never be sleeping with anything less than one eye open for the rest of my damn life. I just gotta say, because as much as I would not trust Putin as far as I could throw the dude, and I'm never going to get a chance to lay a finger on him given his personal security anyway, even with there being national security some questions a little bit. But the idea of it's straight out of Call of Duty, and there were so many references being made to that over the weekend. Or let's call it the Tom Clancy timeline was a lot of references I saw as well. The idea of a PMC potentially having control over nukes, no thank you any way, shape, or form, even though there was a lot of cheering on of oh yeah, no, roll into Moscow, see what happens. And there was the potential, of course, for it to be there. But as much as this is a weirdest timeline, it just keeps getting weirder. The fact that he was a deal broker, now he's going to be exiled to Belarus, but still maybe bringing a bunch of his forces. I don't think this is done. And if anything, it has some serious geopolitical implications for Russia itself, including questionability of the stability of it, or whether there's some paper tiger status, even if, as was a kind of reference by the previous caller, hypersonic missiles making it possibly more that conflict could be happening faster. Things keep getting stranger. That's about the only way I can sum up a lot of things going on here. But let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, that number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Tommy on the east side online with us here right now. Tommy, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. When I hear the employees at company such and such voted to go on strike, I'd like to know, what were they making, what were they paid, and what do they want? Because that's going to give me an idea of why I'm paying high prices everywhere.
Okay, was there a specific one that you were listening or hearing about recently?
Yes, sir. I heard they were going to go on strike from your radio station. I mean, not at your radio station.
Okay, I was about to say, that's news to me.
Company.
Okay, yeah, from the news update at the top of the hour here. I'll double check that one. So let's see what we might be able to find up on that. We, of course, got some details that come out from our national news partners, but there have been a variety of strikes in the news recently. One of the big ones that is having a lot of impact on not necessarily our station here again, but other parts of the world and like popular entertainment has, of course, been the writer's strike, which is one of the more interesting ones, I got to say, going on, because it doesn't look like it's having any particular end of it coming up.
Well, I thought I heard UPS was going on strike, and they hadn't been on strike in decades. Well, I don't care how long it's been since they went on strike. I want to know what they want to get paid.
No, that's a decent question. And I will say that there actually was, I want to say it was earlier this week, that there was a protest, not quite a picket line, but something along those lines that was, well, in our borderland area. Wasn't quite sure. It was near one of the big UPS stations, I guess might be the right way to put it, warehouses, distribution centers. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on that, but there was something along those lines happening within our region. I saw some posting on social media earlier this week. So if that's the rumbling towards that, I guess I wouldn't be too surprised.
Well, if they come to find out they were making $7.50 an hour, I'd say, well, yeah, those poor dears. But if you come to find out they're making about $35 an hour, that would kind of change my outlook on the situation.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, seeing if it's reasonable or not, I think that's where a lot of the public pressure ends up coming down to. So I haven't seen anything particularly released on that myself here. I've known a few people who have driven for UPS over the years, but not totally recently. And of course, we've got some of those wrinkles in our area of there potentially being fraudulent trucks, or the whole, even beyond that aspect, the independent contractor, branded contracting with them. So there's a lot of changing issues with that. I mean, chalk it up to another one of those things, I guess, in my estimation, that has been severely changed by the pandemic was package delivery, 2-day shipping. Remember any one of those services offering that has pretty much evaporated these days, even though if it's changed a bit, it's like there's now sometimes same day shipping available in our area because of increased capabilities. But again, it kind of fits in that framework I talk about of things getting weirder over time.
Well, thanks a lot. I'd just like to hear the dollar figure and see how much they were making.
Nope, absolutely. That's an interesting question. So we'll see what we can find out on that one here. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. Went a little bit long on the first one, so we'll get back on track with it right now. Still taking those phone calls. Of course, if you want to get on the line, just like Tommy there was, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. A hot mess on I-10 in East El Paso. A semi-truck spilled more than 100 gallons of hot sauce on the westbound lanes of the interstate near Yarborough, causing a huge traffic backup. According to El Paso Fire, the spill happened this morning, but it's taking time to contain since firefighters are having to wear hazmat suits to secure the big rig. A spokesman for the El Paso Fire Department said most of the sauce spilled onto the emergency lane near Cielo Vista Mall. No injuries were reported, but traffic in the area was delayed. well into the afternoon. And in downtown El Paso, one person suffered minor injuries after crashing through a parking garage. Dispatchers say the incident happened last night. The car crashed through a wall at 1 San Jacinto Plaza parking garage on Franklin in downtown. The driver was taken to a local hospital for treatment. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Heavy slowing remains on I-10 westbound west of Hawkins. This is for fire department activity. 2 right lanes remain closed. Stay left to get by. Slowing is from Yarborough. I-10 westbound at Airway. The exit ramp is closed related to the work going on at Hawkins. And watch for slowing for an accident reported on Montana downtown at Rosewood. That's your latest El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. The weekend looking not quite as hot overall. 103 for your Saturday, this 4th of July weekend. 101 for your Sunday, about a 10% chance of a storm by Sunday. Partly cloudy, 100 degrees for your Monday. And then 4th of July Tuesday, partly cloudy skies. We'll see a high around 101. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Attention homeowners, cyber thieves are now coming for you. There have been huge losses from title fraud. Over 83 million property owners are at risk. Many companies you hear of offer title monitoring. This does not protect your title from being stolen. It only notifies you that the crime has occurred. EquityProtect.com doesn't just monitor. We will actually protect your title and equity with our patented technology. For only pennies a day, you can have confidence that your title and property cannot be stolen. Don't just monitor your home's title, protect it. Only EquityProtect.com will lock down your property's title and equity. With EquityProtect.com, cyber thieves cannot access or steal your property's title. Go to TryEquityProtect.com to sign up or schedule a free consultation to see if your home is at risk. When you go there, use promo code RADIO50 to save $50 on the initial sign up. There's a 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to TryEquityProtect.com. That's TryEquityProtect.com and protect your financial future.
We'll have the story of our 4th president, James Madison, from Hillsdale College president Larry Arnn. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
Your 10,000 steps, your 32 miles to work.
Gonna be late again.
Your 8 glasses of water.
What goes in must come out, right, boss?
Life is filled with many numbers, but just remember one of them. 690 KTSM. Your one place for reliable information you use every day.
Give you up-to-date information.
That's affecting me on my day-to-day.
7 days a week. Count on one station. El Paso's News Radio. 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio. 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. So delving a little bit into it deeper during the break here about what's going on with that whole potential strike situation, and it's a little bit unclear. There's some different reporting going on right now if it's going on or not when it comes to UPS. That is, again, if anyone's striking around here at this office, that'd be news to me, but there's been a lot out there from like the Hill reporting that they are going to hold off on the strike after a counteroffer, maybe making more. Teamsters, the union there at Teamsters, saying that what was happening in our area, it looks like, was practice picket lines a little bit earlier this week. So that's interesting that they were practicing for it. And so it seems like it comes down to there still being a new contract coming up, and there being just all the usual things. It's not even just about pay. Is some of the things being mentioned there, both from UPS itself and from like unions, Teamsters, other interested groups, including making sure there's air conditioning in the vehicles, which feels a little bit particularly relevant at the moment in our area. There was the idea of there being 2 tiers of actual compensation, though I will say what UPS, some of the numbers they put out themselves here, there's not a lot of exact things considering that they're part of contract negotiations going on right now. But what UPS reports is that the average hourly wage for full-time package delivery drivers after 4 years on the drive is $42. So as close as I could find, at least with the short-term research here on how much they make overall, though Reuters did note towards the bottom one of their articles on the whole situation from a little bit earlier this week, late last week, actually, that the average compensation that company delivery drivers who make about $150,000 annually, including base pay and benefits before overtime. Do noting that it is a higher paid position than it would be for, say, FedEx, and then that's one of the sticking points in between them there. So there's a lot to move on there, and we'll see how that affects package delivery. Though if you're expecting 2-day delivery, given how this potentially might go, you might not want to expect that. Anyway, also got those phone lines open, of course, here, and responding to that, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Calvin on in the Far East on the line with us here right now. Calvin, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Andrew. It's been a long time since I've been on the radio with you.
Yeah, fair enough there. What's on your mind?
So, first of all, I want to cut off Eric and Raul. I don't know if you remember, but a long time ago or a couple of years ago, Trump did a commercial on some taco salad that he had in his restaurants.
Oh, yeah. It was like a taco bowl with like one of those fried shells. I think I remember that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that must be the reason that we had the hot sauce spill here in El Paso. That's my sense of humor going on.
Fair enough.
To cut them off. The other thing is on your first caller that you had, when he's talking about Biden making a joke in the right time, if you look at it, the people he was with laughed. So it wasn't appropriate where he's at. No matter what the news media is going to tell you, it just doesn't make sense that everybody wants to put Biden down for his sense of humor when the left did it, when Trump did it. And I'm sorry that we didn't get the person we wanted elected. As far as the forgiveness goes for all those student debt loans or student loans, he got elected based off of that. And if they can get a law passed that does it, then they get it done. If they can't get a law passed that allows him to do it, then they can't. But you got to realize if he's got 80 million people that want him to do that, that's the way this democracy works. Okay, and you can go, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. I got it. But still, that's who voted for him.
Sure.
That's what he's going to go for. If you didn't get the guy you liked elected, get over it. Otherwise, you just become the mirror image of Raul and Eric, and it makes no sense.
Interesting way to put it there. And I fully expect that this will probably come up in a legislative way. I mean, that was kind of the initial way it was put forth, wasn't it? Like, we're going to pass something on it, except the way that the legislature works or doesn't these days kind of made a roadblock. And therefore, at least that's my recalling of this whole evolution we've gotten to becoming then an executive action, of which, I mean, the Supreme Court, and my quick reading of their ruling, isn't saying that, no, you can't do student loan relief. They're saying that you can't do it that way because we're essentially having the executive doing legislation. They're doing and changing, appropriating funds. I mean, there have been similar types of things. I want to say you could call this similar to like some of the decisions made on different expenditures or usages of funds that were involved during, like, say, the border wall during the Trump administration, saying that, no, you did not appropriate these funds, and to do it this way, that is a power that essentially holds with the legislature. So if you want to do this, the legislature has to do it. So again, I mean, this was put forth as politically expedient in the first place, right? That's why my recollection of it is, I want to say, I mean, the conversations with like Nancy Pelosi and people like that saying that, no, you don't actually have to have us do anything. You can just do it and it'll be fine. And I mean, there were questions even we had at that point in time of, really, is it really going to be fine? Because that seems like something that will not be fine. And so this is the find out part of the mess around and find out scale, I guess, in this whole situation.
Yeah, and my personal opinion is the way that they tried to do it was just another way to lower the value of the dollar without printing new money to do it.
Yeah, that's one analysis that's been coming out. Another one has been that, okay, even if you're saying that you want there to be this and that, like, particularly like costs for college and secondary education are growing so much that this would be like a stopgap, but not necessarily solve that. I mean, some comments coming in like Amanda Moncada saying the U.S. government should not be in the student loan business. There's a line of reasoning that goes there about this, that the reason we have seen such skyrocketing prices. I mean, there's analysis I see go by my feeds every so often on, what it costs to the concept of being able to work your way through college as not just I'm able to eat during college because I have a job that allows me to buy food, as opposed to I am paying for college while I am in college with a, say, part-time job, has kind of evaporated because of a variety of reasons, but there have definitely been increases in the cost of most secondary education. And one of the reasons that has been, again, in this line of argument, pegged to that is the fact that, well, we've got all of these federal dollars available for it. Now, not going to say that, therefore, we should have less access to education. I mean, that has been one of the good things that has come out of the idea of having, federal student loans, those kind of things. But there has certainly been on the back end, on the institutional angle, oh, wait, there's a lot more money out there? Huh. I've never seen a rational institution or set of people out there saying there's more money available. We should do nothing about that. No, they're going to say like, okay, no, we'll find a way to spend the more money if there's more money out there. Do not even worry about that. You want luxury apartments, you want pools, you want the best athletic program that money can't even buy because we have to get donors to support it as well. Absolutely. Just keep writing those checks and we're good. So there's problems with this system. Do not get me wrong. But I do agree with your analysis, frankly, on the idea of if people wanted this, put them in there. I get a little bit of the maybe bait and switch implications of, we just weren't able to do it this way, so you better vote for us next time. And of course, donate to the campaign. Like this is absolutely now a 2024 issue. Boilerplate, enough said, because I will be damn surprised if anything does come out legislatively, substantively. Anyway, I'm sure something's already been filed, but substantively and actually moving forward before we get to the 2024 special final election beyond the primaries, I will be floored if something actually moves forward before then on this issue.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I appreciate you letting me vent a little bit.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Sure thing. Well, appreciate the point in the call yourself there. You have a good one.
You too, Andrew. All
right. With that, let's go ahead and take that next break right now, moving right on through talking about a whole lot of things because there's a lot going on ahead of this holiday weekend. So go ahead and take that break and, of course, get back to those phone lines. Again, lines available now if you want to chime in. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heavy slowing remains on I-10 westbound west of Hawkins. This is for fire department activity. 2 right lanes remain closed. Stay left to get by. Slowing is from Yarborough. I-10 westbound at Airway. The exit ramp is closed related to the work going on at Hawkins. And watch for slowing for an accident reported on Montana downtown at Rosewood. That's your latest El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
In this week's Marketers Report, Patrizio Spagnoletto, Global Chief Marketing Officer, Direct-to-Consumer for Warner Brothers Discovery, weighs in on the difficult task of building and retaining consumer trust.
Trust is a really hard thing to build and a really easy thing to destroy, and we have to be very respectful about that. Our partnership with iHeart has really helped us build that trust and that relationship with the on-air talent. The best thing for us to do is to build a relationship with our consumers. And if those consumers have a relationship with the DJs that are on air, then we want to build on that. House of the Dragon, which was one of our most successful, if not the most successful campaign we've ever done for a show, audio was a core part of that.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to all. Every audience, live conversations, trusted influencers, and the insights and data you need to grow. Not just a media company. iHeartMedia is your access company. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
No, not now. That sounds like it's going to cost you.
I know what to do.
I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, I could have the money in my account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
We'll have the story of Sidney Poitier, Hollywood's first black movie star and the first black man to win a Best Actor Oscar. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Who said that?
Me, down here.
Ugh, what are you, a yellow booger?
I'm a banana slug, Steven.
What are you doing in my room?
I'm your sense of adventure. It's been a long time since we've had an adventure in the forest.
Mom took me to the forest last year.
I'm a slug, Steven. It took me a long time to get here.
You're right. I should get out.
Yeah, the forest is not that far away.
Hey, Mom!
Come to the forest where the more adventurous you lives. Check out discovertheforest.org for cool places nearby. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, just kind of as a programming note here, or logistics. If you're calling in the middle of a segment, you might get put on hold there briefly. As long as you can hear the show, you're in the right place. We've had a couple people or calls pop on and off, so never quite sure if that message isn't getting through or if we are having any technical issues. Probably somewhere in between, because steam-powered radio and all that. But in the meantime, of course, we are taking those calls, as it is Free for All Friday. I mean, getting into the usual time for the rest of the week at this point. But hey, we've been doing it already, so if you want to get on that line, there's a line available right now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, and a lot of different commentary and things going on there. Those dropping those likes and reacts, including Amber Banda, Marky Mandingo, Amos Lara, that's not showing me the full list, Monica Cervantes, Bernadette Bandicolt, James Holmes, Richard Janicek, and I'm not ignoring everyone else there, but Jim McCravey, RJ Promotes, Ida Beza Gardner, and Rick Reyes. I think that's the full list. In any case, appreciate you all doing so, but let's jump into at least one more phone call before we hit the top of the hour. Right now, we do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm looking at an article from CNN right now. It came out yesterday. Said that Supreme Court guts affirmative action in college admissions. I think it should read instead, Supreme Court slams public education of minorities. What do you think?
Okay.
My feeling is that, any minority, given, they're people, they're individuals that have, minds to be used to, for educating themselves and everything. And anybody with the proper education should be able to compete to get into any college they want to. The problem is that our public education has failed them.
Mm.
And that's the reason why, and especially in the cities, where these people have to go to schools that are not teaching them anything. They have first grade educations in seventh grade. They are, they can't do basic math. They can't read. So I think that it's got more to do with, and I applaud the Supreme Court for doing that, because, it discriminates against people that actually do the work and actually, are if they are in a situation where they are brought up where they're in a school system where they can't get proper education, they'd find a way to do it, like the Asians do, and everything. So, I think it should be put another way, and it's not a matter that it's put down affirmative action. I think it has more to do with public education. What do you think?
I mean, it's an interesting link you're bringing there. I mean, I would say undeniably that the Supreme Court decision of saying that race cannot be a factor in, again, university admissions pretty much puts an end, whether you call it that or not, to affirmative action. I mean, there are questions. There's been a whole bunch of articles out as of today on like what happens now with diversity efforts in higher education. And of course, there's been efforts like that arguably underway within Texas overall on the banning and other policies that have come out when it comes to like what Governor Greg Abbott has signed and has championed in his own right on saying that we are either closing these offices, banning their usefulness of the diversity and inclusion offices here. So we've seen an aspect of that within the state already. But I mean, affirmative action is very much no longer going to be allowable, though I think the only real from that aspect of it, the only, at least from the Texas Tribune's analysis, was that only UT Austin is going to be the only public school affected, though some other major private universities like Rice and SMU, I believe, are the ones they directly mentioned as their policies are now going to need to be having immediate review. But of course, you're talking about the pipeline there with the education, the public education part of it, again, who can then end up going to it. On the Texas aspect, one new thing today we'll say real quick is that there is the potential for them to look at, I want to say the Texas Tribune had this out there. Yeah, they may be looking to imitate Texas's top 10% plan, which was in place back when I was in school, which was that if you're the top 10% of your grade, you get, if not free admission, I don't know the exact details of the plan anymore, but it definitely was you get admission into any of Texas's public universities. So that may be a part of it. So that would kind of, I guess, maybe go towards your idea of academic achievement and like personal merit along to it. Would that be kind of in the vein you're talking about?
I'm talking about any minority. I'm just hoping that because of this, the focus should be on helping the minorities get a good education, and they're not getting it through the public educational system. So we got to do away with the public education, get back and go to schools of choice, and make it where there's actually some kind of a thing where there's competition within the school system. Okay, if public schools are failing, let's go to school choice, where these schools can actually educate our children.
That has been one of the things brought up, of course, in the Texas, it was in the legislative session, and was one of the kerfuffles that led to not much happening right at the end of it. Did not come up technically this last time around in that special session because it was a subtext, if not an actual item being put forth, the school funding, or very much the tax relief part that is very well focused on school funding. They're inextricably intertwined, even if the whole school choice, vouchers, savings account, whatever, there's been a lot of different ways it's been suggested. We'll see what comes out of that for any of these future special sessions. So I don't think there's any simple...
I really do feel sorry for the minorities that are stuck in these public schools that are not educating them and do not give them a chance to compete in the world and in life, as they go through life.
I mean, it's a complicated subject here, and that's, I think, one of the driving factors for the whole school choice conversation. But tell you what, we're right at the end of this hour here right now, so we're going to have to take that break right now, come back after the top of the hour, and continue talking about this, and as it's being put there, kerfufflery in a school system. But stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that phone number, 915-544-58765 for KTSM. Back in a minute.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The Biden administration is plotting a new course to offer student loan borrowers relief. This comes after the Supreme Court struck down President Biden's loan forgiveness plan today, which would have canceled up to $20,000 in debt for eligible borrowers. Speaking from the White House, Biden detailed how his new plan differs from the original one.
We will ground this new approach in a different law than my original plan, the so-called Higher Education Act. That will allow Secretary Cardona, who's with me today, to compromise, waive, or release loans under certain circumstances.
Cardona said the high court ruled against students and families across the country. The judge in the trial of murder suspect Brian Kohberger has ordered grand jury transcripts turned over to the defense. The judge is keeping the transcripts sealed to the public, but will allow defense attorneys to see them. It could help them learn what evidence might be used to tie Kohberger to the murder of 4 University of Idaho students last year. Kohberger's trial is set for October 2nd. A new report is criticizing both the Trump and Biden administrations for decisions that led to the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. Lisa Taylor reports.
The State Department released its Afghanistan After Action Review today, which said both administrations failed to appreciate how the U.S. military pullout would affect the Afghan government's stability. The report says senior U.S. officials gave insufficient consideration of worst-case scenarios. The Taliban rapidly took over the country following the U.S. exit. A suicide bombing at Kabul airport killed 13 U.S. service members. I'm Lisa Taylor.
A record number of Americans are planning to travel this 4th of July weekend. AAA projects more than 50 million Americans will travel at least 50 miles from home. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Lawyers for New York Congressman George Santos will be reviewing a mountain of evidence against their client. Scott Pringle reports on Santos's federal court appearance today on Long Island.
The judge is giving George Santos's defense team the whole summer to review what prosecutors say is more than 80,000 pages of evidence against Santos. Now, this was the Republicans' first court appearance since pleading not guilty to charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and making false statements. Prosecutors allege Santos misused campaign funds and fraudulently received COVID-19 unemployment benefits and also lied about his finances.
Prosecutors allege the film Armorer on the Rust set with Alec Baldwin transferred a small bag of cocaine after coming back from a police interview on the day of the fatal shooting. The motion filed comes after Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was charged with evidence tampering related to cinematographer Helena Hutchins' death. That's on top of 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter filed against Gutierrez-Reed earlier in the year. A Florida teen caught on camera shotgunning an alcoholic drink with a baby alligator has been criminally charged.
The video taken outside of a popular Plant City restaurant shows the teen picking up the reptile, holding it in the air, and chugging the drink with the young gator's jaws gripping the can. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission reportedly caught wind of the video, which was circulating on social media, which led authorities to charge one of the teens for taking the alligator without a permit. The baby gator was captured and released in a local retention pond where it is alive and well. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Perhaps the most famous jacket that NBA legend Michael Jordan ever wore is selling for $1.5 million. That was the winning bid Wednesday for Jordan's 1992 Dream Team jacket at Sotheby's in New York City. It was the jacket Jordan was wearing while receiving a gold medal at the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Grand. That's grand. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
You might be driving right now, and if you are, this story is right in front of you, the surprising history of road lane markings. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Every day, you breathe in thousands of tiny little germs, allergens, and viruses. Don't let these invisible invaders make breathing through your nose impossible. Flush them out with Navage. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage to make cleaning your nose easy. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, helping flush out everything that makes you miserable. Nearly 4 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and feel healthier. People like Doug, a verified Navage user who writes, I had difficulty for years breathing through my nose. After using Navage, my whole breathing has changed. My sinuses don't hurt and no more stuffy nose. It's an amazing product. Unquote. If you suffer from sinus congestion, allergies, or snoring, then Navage is the safe, drug-free solution you've been looking for. Navage is at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, and Navage.com. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Welcome to the good stuff. I'm Jacob Schick, a third-generation combat Marine.
And I'm his co-host and wife, Ashley Schick. We believe everyone has a story to tell, not only about the peaks, but the valleys they've been through to get them to where they are today. We're joined by some amazing guests who share the lessons they've learned that shaped who they are and what they're doing to pay it forward and give back.
Listen to the good stuff on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of conversations going on over there, a lot of different points being brought up here, and a lot of people, again, dropping those likes and reacts. And I do have the full list this time, including Jennifer Favor, Howell, Ember Banda, Marky Mendengo, Amos Laura, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Bernadette Bandicol, James Hobbs, Richard Janicek, Flaco Jimenez, Jim McCravey, RJ Promotes, Ida Beza Gardner, and Rick Reyes. Certainly didn't want to shortchange anyone there. If you appreciate the ability to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland and, of course, beyond, like we do today, as Free for All Friday is what we call it, and one of the most important days of the week for us, even as, yes, we are on the cusp of the holiday weekend, and preemptively happy 4th to you all. Hope you've got your medication or otherwise containment measures in place for any of those out there with furry friends in their lives. Take that as you will. In any case, there's a lot going on, a lot to talk about here. We've, of course, got those phone lines open, if full up at the moment, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, and a lot of different conversations, including on the whole school issue. Trito Sack over on the YouTube page saying, my take is parents should be given the option to save the money they would have paid into school property taxes to put towards private school tuition if they so choose. It's effectively a part of one of the plans that have been put forth, but we're not even close to that actually coming up yet. Again, we got another special session that goes into parts of school funding, but mostly in the tax rate compression side of it and not the actual what happens with the money once allocated aspect of it. I fully expect it will be another special session, which again leads me to believe that this could be the closest we're going to get to having just a constant calling back of the legislature right up until the next legislative session. Doubt that the governor would be willing to go that far, but there's a lot of priorities that did not happen that he is very upset about. Literally vetoed, like, what was it, 70 bills that had passed? We're done. We're on his desk as a, if y'all can't play nice, y'all don't get your bills to take home either. Like, you could call it take my ball and go home kind of logic, except he's still calling him back. In any case, other commentary coming in, like Louis Panado saying, I tend to be renamed K. Picasso Way, W-A-Y is the way I'm saying that. If you're saying it elsewhere, that's on you because, well, yeah, that spell was still getting cleaned up as far as I'm aware. Let me see if I got anything in the latest on that one, but so many jokes being made up about that. Yeah. So if you were wondering why it seemed a little spicier on the roads today, there you go. Anyway, getting back to those phone lines now. We do have right now with us Eric on the east side. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hello there. Republicans and conservatives in Congress, they're currently destroying our country's foundations from within at the highest levels. Like, Trump lost the election, so Trump right-wing media and Republicans in Congress try to help him steal the election, delegitimizing American democracy. And Trump is being held accountable for his crimes now against the country. So now Republicans in Congress are trying to destroy public trust in our legal system and delegitimizing the rule of law. You know, these are the very foundations of our country. And conservatives at the highest levels in Congress and the media, you know, they're attacking these institutions. And Republican politicians have created a post-truth world that conservatives, even if they cared about the country enough to care about the truth, would be incapable of discerning what is true and what isn't true. Like the traitor Jim Jordan, the head of the Judiciary Committee, he's leading these efforts in Congress to delegitimize our justice system and the rule of law. And, you know, like Jim Jordan, he told Mike Pence he should break the law and not count certain state electors in order to steal the 2020 election for Trump. And then on January 2nd, after the election and before January 6th, Jim Jordan led a call with Trump and other members of Congress to think of ways to delay the certification of the election results. And Jim Jordan, you know, he's at the core of a lot of Trump's coup attempt and attempt to steal the election. And he created this bad faith subcommittee called the Weaponization of the Federal Government. I think I may have mentioned this in the past, to promote baseless conspiracy theories about the FBI persecuting conservatives. Like this subcommittee had or they often have pro-January 6th coup witnesses who worked for the FBI, testifying that conservatives are being unfairly persecuted by the FBI within the agency and the country overall. You know, that's common on this station, and you know, you'll hear that false narrative all the time. But these narratives are being promoted from within Congress. Like these FBI agents that were testifying, they were suspended specifically for expressing sympathy for the January 6th insurrectionists, failing to do their job to investigate those insurrectionists, and for sabotaging investigations into those insurrectionists. Like these witnesses, they were presented to the public as whistleblowers by Jim Jordan Republicans when they weren't anything of the sort, and they were claiming to be victims of some plot within the FBI to expel conservatives, when the reality is they were just traitors to their country who were supporting the January 6th insurrectionists. And you know, during this committee hearing, or these committee hearings, Republicans are calling to defund the FBI. These aren't fringe voices. This is the head of the Judiciary Committee manufacturing this false narrative of, you know, that really is pandering to these far-right Alex Jones conspiracy theorists that were brought into the political scene by Trump, you know, about this deep state, this secret shadow government.
It's kind of interesting that in all of this, I mean, I'm not a particular fan of Jim Jordan. He's very much in the former president's camp in his own right, in his way he goes about things, and that's pretty transparent throughout there. But I will say it's interesting that you're putting this as that Congress is doing, well, Congress, specifically the House, that is doing the most to destabilize things, because the ironic part there is that you're accusing them of being way more effective than I think they actually have been in just about anything in recent days. I mean, what do we start off this year talking about? There being a complete lack of the leadership ability to have things actually happen. So I get it. You're unhappy about the hearings, and it's the thing that you can, of course, do. That's between you and your own mentality on how to decide these things. But I guess the part of like what is actually like happening out of it, I mean, if you're upset about the discourse, you don't like the way people are talking about these things, that's again your prerogative. That is, you know, absolutely a decision you can make for yourself there. But again, I try to look at like policies and what things are being put into place, and like outside of the calls for that, and don't think that this show is even still going to become a whipping boy for everything else going on this station. We continue to do our own thing here, but that's the actual actions coming out of it have been, just hasn't been a lot actually effectiveness. Like if you're talking about bills being passed, actions actually being taken, there's been at least a couple that have come out that even made it through the Senate in some cases, and the White House has said, nope, we ain't gonna end up doing that. So if you don't like the discussion here, I mean, Jim Jordan, I would certainly say he's doing a little bit of the CYA over January 6th, because there was even talk about at one point for them to use some of the acts that haven't really been used since the Civil War when it comes to the idea of people who had led. If not, again, I don't agree with the characterization of a coup or an uprising, but of it being maybe the insurrection aspect of it here, I still think firmly it was a riot and firmly deserves to be looked into and make sure that that kind of thing can't happen in our nation's capital again. And the investigation into the individual members of it, the ones who were entering the building, and anyone thinking like, oh no, I was wandering around the Capitol having gone through security, that was perfectly fine, right? Yeah, no, that's a ridiculous statement on its very face here. So Jim Jordan has been very much proving himself a political animal this time around. But I mean, do you feel that there's any actual like action been taken out of this that you want to point to, or are you just mostly unhappy about the way it's been being talked about within these committee hearings?
I understand you trying to downplay the significance and efficacy of this disinformation campaign.
All right, Eric, we've been doing this dance for a minute here now. If we want to actually have a conversation here, I'm not trying to characterize your thoughts and feelings. I asked you a question. So do you actually have a response and an answer to that question here that you would like to do if we're trying to actually conversate here?
Yeah, this disinformation campaign is extremely effective. If you listen to like what your callers discuss or think about like the FBI and the rule of law and about this supposed two-tiered justice system that doesn't exist, you'll see that this misinformation campaign is destroying the faith in the rule of law at its very core. And this is the stuff that destroys countries from within, when the public doesn't have trust in its justice system to equally apply the law. And when you have these lies being manufactured and legitimized by Republicans in Congress, you have conservative media that's already going to lie and say whatever they have to delegitimize the justice system. But now they're being fed these lies from Congress, from sworn testimonies under oath, from bad faith witnesses who are bad faith, and they're there to legitimize these conspiracy theories that are promoting these far-right conspiracy theories about these shadow governments and how the rule of law is no longer meaningless.
Okay, so I'm going to answer for you here based on your answer here that, you're mostly upset about the way things are being talked about there, which again, perfectly, very much you're right here, because, I mean, it would be, again, ironic if you're accusing this Congress of being too effective in any particular way with what it's actually doing here, because, not like a whole lot of that going on. But, okay, to the point there, and the way that you constantly bring up Alex Jones, even though, I'm not talking about that dude, but if he lives rent-free in your head, again, that's your problem, not mine. But let's just say this when it comes to it. To think that there isn't at least some difference in the way that the law is applied between those of means and are not, I don't even think you're paying attention to your own statements on this here, because the idea of there being differences, I mean, at the very least, between the idea of there being fines for something means that it's just the cost for a person with the means to be able to afford that to do it, as opposed to a penalty against them here. And of course, the way that, I mean, it's not even just within the political sphere. There's been conversation for a long time about the idea that those that have the means, the lawyers specifically, in order to be able to file enough stuff, get enough deals, backroom. I mean, you cannot say that influence does not have any kind of effect when it comes to the legislation, certainly, but also of the actual follow through of the process of effectively justice in this country. There's I'm forgetting his name overall, but the one guy who, it was a few years back now, but shouldn't be sent affecting the rest of his life for a few minutes of action. That's the phrase that sticks with me, and I won't describe his admitted actions at that point, but let's just say it was way, way more than that, and he got off pretty scot-free. Of course, his name has now been dragged through mud. Even I can't remember it off the top of my mind. So if you want to take it totally politically, I'm not saying that it's been necessarily served well in these recent weeks. The idea of there being with the deal, the Hunter Biden deal, that has been very much getting screamed about in a lot of different places here, because if you look at the concept and the application, particularly at the highest level, you got to say that there are certainly some political implications that come along with it, whether intentional or not. To ignore them is also just saying that, well, no, that's just the way it should work. And if you want to say that, well, that's breaking people's faith in it, I'm not sure that any one committee or set of committee hearings has necessarily been doing a much better job than what has been going on already. So if you think that justice has been completely equally applied in this country, and that therefore that anyone says that it hasn't is just wanting to tear it down further, again, you're entitled to your opinion, but I think that more than a few people are going to say, yeah, but has it? Without necessarily saying, but you're wrong because you're insert political affiliation here, but just kind of looking at the circumstances. If you only want to look at this through a political lens, I'd say that's a pretty fair estimation of a lot of what we've talked about here so far and in these conversations that we have had. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you are doing so. You're going to continue to do that, and I'm not going to try to dissuade you from it as much as I would try to dissuade a wall from being painted the color that it is. But if you're going to say that, therefore, these guys are the only thing doing anything bad either as well, or particularly being effective at it here, I'm just going to simply have to disagree with you, and we're going to have to leave it at that because I don't think we're going to come to any other further consensus with that either. So we've gone a bit long here for this first segment as well, as we kind of keep doing this hour. So appreciate the point and the call for what it's worth, and the pseudo answer, I guess I'll call that, even if I had to end up declaring it for you. But let's go and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we do have more calls. We do have more comments, more of everything we got going on the line for you here, because it is Friday, well into the second hour here now, and we'll keep going up with it. So if you want to get on the line, of course, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Slowing on I-10 eastbound in the West Valley from Artcraft to Mesa. And 10 westbound delays from Viscount to Airway. Secondary delays in the West Valley from Mesa Road over to Red Road. No delays to report on US 54, Patriot Freeway north and south between Kenworthy and I-10. That's a look at your latest El Paso traffic.
Inflation compensation is back.
Oh, yeah.
Demand your supply of $1,000.
$1,000? Oh.
Just listen for the keywords to text in to win $1,000. Happening now.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. with the inflation compensation on News Radio 690 AM. Brought to you by Charlie Clark Nissan and Charlie Clark Infinity of El Paso. Orale!
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
We'll have the story of Sidney Poitier, Hollywood's first black movie star and the first black man to win a Best Actor Oscar. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
50% off everything is yours for a limited time through July 6th during the Endless Summer event at Banana Republic Factory. Celebrate the season with linen suiting, breezy dresses, timeless neutrals, and more. Only at your nearest Banana Republic Factory store.
Your home is the place where you know your loved ones are secure. But the things that keep your home protected can't keep pests at bay. That's where RAID comes in. For 60 years, RAID scientists have worked to protect people around the world. With trusted research, ingredients, testing standards, and product efficacy, RAID seeks to create a better future for all, especially the ones you love most. RAID, protection for all.
50% off everything is yours for a limited time through July 6th during the Endless Summer event at Banana Republic Factory. Celebrate the season with linen suiting, breezy dresses, timeless neutrals, and more. Only at your nearest Banana Republic Factory store.
So, I'm a dog, and I just got adopted by this new human guy, and I'm starting to wonder how he got along without me. I mean, okay, something as simple as walking around the block. He's got this leash thing, and he puts me on one end and him on the other, and I'm just taking him around. I think he's afraid of getting lost. Without that leash and me guiding him along, I don't think he'd find his way back home. But it's kind of cute.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of commentary coming in, a lot of different perspectives. Very much a class. Thunderdome comments, absolutely in effect, as it is most Fridays, I do feel like. So if you want to wade in there, again, not only the social media pages, more than welcome to. We pop up some of the ones that are relevant enough or interesting enough. I mean, there's a lot of other conversation that goes on there. Can't keep track of every aspect of it. But in the meantime, of course, got those phone lines open. If full up at the moment, again, here's the hints. Make sure that you are... Make sure you get on right after we end one of the previous calls. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Let's dive right back into that right now. We do have, it looks like it's one more comment coming in about some of the discussions we're having today, like Buddy Vaya saying there's a misconception that people who benefit from affirmative action are somehow not qualified. And again, the article from the Texas Tribune, I got the actual title of it here at this point. With race-based admissions no longer an option, states may imitate Texas's top 10% plan. And yeah, I was remembering correctly, it was admission into it. You still had to get like scholarships or figure out how to pay your own way. But based on previous Supreme Court decisions, actually at that point in time, that was back in 97, after the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that banning use of race admissions in 3 states within its jurisdiction, including Texas. So shades of that. So we'll see what comes out of it. Anyway, got back to the phone line right now. We do have Stephen on the east side here with us right now. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I think it's hilarious how blatantly partisan people like Eric, these leftists, are when it comes to undermining supposedly the integrity of elections and everything. All you have to do is go back a few years, and you'll see all kinds of leftists, just like Eric, just like Raul, questioning the basis of our elections, claiming that Russia could change the outcome of the election, claiming that the only reason Donald Trump was because Russia flipped the election. But even more than that, you can see the Georgia candidate, she claimed that she rightfully won the election for years. All the way back to George Bush, you can go back for years, and leftists were constantly questioning the integrity of elections, and they've been doing it for years. It just so happens that they liked the outcome of the last one. That's why they're not motivated to question all these unverified. They don't check the ballots, the mail-in ballots, the extreme number of mail-in ballots because they use the excuse for COVID. I mean, there's plenty of reasons to question the outcome of the election. Now, whether or not there were illegitimate ballots and stuff, once you separate the ballot from the envelope, there's no way of knowing. He doesn't know. I don't know. You don't know. So he's very confident because he's that the election was the most secure election in history because that's what the propagandists told him. But maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. He just doesn't have any motivation to question it because he liked the outcome. If it would have been the exact opposite outcome with the exact opposite situation, he would be just as conspiracy theorist as Alex Jones. In fact, Eric basically is the Alex Jones of the left on this program. So that's how I view him.
Okay.
Just like Marco said yesterday, nobody takes him seriously. I say things like, people should be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And he says, I'm raising my children to be white supremacists on the internet. And he trolls like that. These people have a mental disorder. They're not to be taken seriously. They would judge Martin Luther King as a white supremacist based on their modern leftist views. Now, that's not what I called today. There's another Supreme Court decision that came down, and I do think people misinterpret what is being said here, because some people make it sound like, well, if you're a certain race or you're gay or something like that, that someone can reject you based on your skin color or your sexual orientation. That is not what the Supreme Court said. So let me give you an example of something that someone may not be forced to do. Let's say you make websites, and you make really good websites, and people want your services. But let's say the person who makes the website is a Muslim. Now, can a Christian or a Jewish person force that website owner to create a website that will give messages that, let's say, are derogatory to Muhammad, for example? Let's say you say, well, you're a Muslim and you have this website business, but I want you to make a website that explains all about how Muhammad is a false prophet. And the Muslim says, no, I don't want to make that website. It goes against what I believe. Then the government cannot compel that Muslim person to create that website that creates messages that he does not himself believe. And that's not discriminatory towards the Christian who's trying to get the service, or the atheist, or the whoever it was. So it's different than what's being claimed. And they're going to try all this misinformation about what the Supreme Court decision actually says, and as is typical. And they do this with the other Supreme Court decisions. So I just wanted to set the record straight. You cannot discriminate someone just based on their race, gender, sexual orientation. It's all about the forced or compelled speech by government. That's what you can't do.
Okay. Interesting way to interpret it. I mean, most of it's being talked about is that essentially affirmative action is dead because of it. But of course, most Supreme Court decisions end up coming out and having further reach, or potentially further reaching implications than whatever the surface level issue may be. There's a reason that stare decisis is a very important concept.
Right. So there's the affirmative action ruling that came out earlier this week. And then there's the new one. It was a web designer who didn't want to do gay weddings. Or something like that. It's kind of like the baker who didn't want to do like two males or two females on top of a wedding cake. They felt like that was compelling their speech, their artistic speech, and forcing them to say something they don't want to say. And that's what that decision was about.
Yeah, and I mean, having not delved into this current one, in that previous situation, the cake case specifically, it was on that. I mean, you cannot compel someone's labor, was essentially the idea. Though I think a very important aspect of it that has also been overlooked is the idea that you still can't discriminate based on someone. Essentially, there was a narrow-ish part of it, at least in my interpretation, and ones that I find myself agreeing with, that if it's something where, okay, you couldn't come up to me and say, hey, I want you, Andrew, as the host, to say something that you find personally abhorrent, and you have to do it here. I would say, well, no, I'm not going to say that. But if it's something where like, oh, hey, I want to buy this thing that you offer, that you like have available on the shelf here, say, no, I don't agree with you as a person, so I'm not going to sell you that thing. So there was a narrowness aspect of it, though I think that part often ends up getting overlooked, even if there are, again, more implications than could even be just flatly stated coming from it.
Right. So let's go back to the cake example. If the person says, well, I'm gay, I want a cake. And the guy says, well, I'm not going to make you a cake just because you're gay. That's discriminatory. That's against the law. But if the person says, I want you to bake a cake and I want it to be for my gay wedding and I want you to put two males on there or two females on there, that's kind of forcing the baker, let's say they have religious beliefs for whatever reason they don't want to do that, they can say no based on that, not based on the orientation of the person. Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah, again, it's that the boundary, effectively, without quoting directly from the decision or anything here, is on the specific labor and, again, the expression that comes along with it. If there was, like, to put it even a little bit closer here, my interpretation of this would be that if, say, there was a store that sold cakes, sold individual male figures and individual female figures, and we're saying that, okay, I want to buy a cake and I want to have two male figures at the top of it based on what you got on the shelf there, then saying, no, we're not going to sell you that would be considered discriminatory at that point. Or any other combination of figures that, again, is like, I guess the ready availability is not exactly the standard that was created, but it's kind of the way I conceive of it.
Right. The creator can't be forced to do what the creator doesn't want to do, but the person buying the product can. But this recent one was a website. So
right.
Again, similar idea. Can you force the person to send these messages that this person doesn't necessarily want to send by their creative work on the website and the images and the messages that are on the website? So that person, the Supreme Court said that person can't be forced to do that.
Yeah, that's one of the aspects of it here, though. Of course, looking a little bit more at it, trying to pull up some of the most recent. I like oyez.org for references on a lot of these cases. oyez.org. They have having some of the executive summaries that are useful for discussions like this. Though don't think they have that one quite updated. I mean, it's been new. There's a thing that happens during the Supreme Court when decisions are released. They call it the running of the interns, because they often just give out the holding of it and not necessarily the full decision immediately, but sometimes they do. So there's that. That's one of those kind of DC insider things that does happen around these times. But I will say that in this case, again, about specific labor being compelled is, don't know if it's exactly the standards being upheld, but that's certainly a concept that does apply.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting, and it's worth pointing out, my last comment on this is, in a lot of these situations, it is actually the people who know that the baker or the website designer doesn't want to do this kind of thing, and they specifically seek them out in order so that they can specifically try to sue them. And it's kind of all that was done on purpose, and I don't really like that aspect of it either. Like the baker, these people went way out of their way to seek out this person to try to force him to bake a cake that they were pretty much certain he didn't want to do. I mean, this is supposedly people just want to live their own lives, be left alone, live according to their own conscience. But that's a lot of times not what's going on. They're going out of their way to try to shove things in your face or force people to do things that they don't want to do. And there's a little bit of aspect of that to it too. That being said, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't bake the cake or do whatever. I'm just saying it sets a bad precedent if the government is going to force people to have speech or do things that is against their conscience. And on any level, I think that's probably a bad precedent, because it could be extended to other things as well. So have a good weekend. Have a good 4th.
Yeah, sure thing. You too as well. Appreciate the point on the call. Stay safe out there during this 4th as well. All right, with that, let's go ahead and take that next break. Right now, we got more calls. We got a lot more conversation coming up here. So again, if you want to squeeze on the line before the end of the show, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. A hot mess on I-10 in East El Paso. A semi-truck spilled more than 100 gallons of hot sauce on the westbound lanes of the interstate near Yarborough, causing a huge traffic backup. According to El Paso Fire, the spill happened this morning, but it's taking time to contain since firefighters are having to wear hazmat suits to secure the big rig. A spokesman for the El Paso Fire Department said most of the sauce spilled onto the emergency lane near Cielo Vista Mall. No injuries were reported, but traffic in the area was delayed well into the afternoon. And in downtown El Paso, one person suffered minor injuries after crashing through a parking garage. Dispatchers say the incident happened last night. The car crashed through a wall at One San Jacinto Plaza parking garage on Franklin in downtown. The driver was taken to a local hospital for treatment. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Slowing on I-10 westbound, just west of Viscount, up to Airway Boulevard. Slowing on I-10 eastbound from just east of Geronimo to Airway. And in the lower valley, expect some slow and go with lane restrictions on Joe Battle northbound at Bob Hope. No delays to report. Loop 375 southbound between Montana and I-10. That's your latest traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. The weekend looking not quite as hot overall. 103 for your Saturday, this 4th of July weekend. 101 for your Sunday, about a 10% chance of a storm by Sunday. Partly cloudy, 100 degrees for your Monday. And then 4th of July Tuesday, partly cloudy skies. We'll see a high around 101. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
This week on Red Pilled America, we talked to former deputy assistant to President Trump, none other than Sebastian Gorka himself. He has a unique insight that we think you're going to want to hear. Join the independent media revolution and listen to Red Pilled America anywhere you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Why do you change your car's air filter? Because when it's clogged, it doesn't work. The same is true of your nose, the body's air filter. It's great at trapping allergens, dust, and viruses, but unless you clean it regularly, they can stay trapped, making you miserable. I'm Martin Hogue, inventor of Navage, the world's only nose cleaner with powered suction. Navage pulls saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, helping to flush out allergens, mucus, and germs. Here's a testimonial from a verified purchaser and a big Navage fan. Quote, I've been suffering for 30 years with chronic sinus infections and allergies. I stumbled across Navage. The suction is amazing. It cleared my sinus cavities better than anything I've tried before. Unquote. Navage has over 120,000 reviews with a 4.6-star average written by people who use Navage to breathe better, snore less, and feel healthier. Wash your body's air filter with Navage at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
We'll have the story of Sidney Poitier, Hollywood's first black movie star and the first black man to win a Best Actor Oscar. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Who, me? Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live for News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And if you're just going to be like mad that people won't agree with you, or that people don't accept your reasoning here and going to call people, again, literal terrorists and traitors, yeah, just know you're going to be removed. If you're just here to troll, always going to be removed. Simple way that it is. So if you're mad, find another place to deal with it, because we're here to talk about the things that affect us in the borderland and beyond, of which there are serious ones. So finally fell the holding in that case that a previous caller was talking about on the website, that of the 303 Creative LLC et al. Versus Elenis et al. That's back to the case here. The holding is specifically that held the First Amendment prohibits Colorado from forcing a website designer to create expressive designs speaking messages with which the designer disagrees. So I think the two important parts of this, and what might be the part of it, and it was Justice Gorsuch writing for the majority in this case, a little bit later on, said, quote, we're the rule otherwise, the better the artist, the finer the writer, the more unique his talent, the more easily his voice could be conscripted to disseminate the government's preferred messages that would not respect the First Amendment. More nearly, it would spell its demise. And other things commenting along with that, like Austin Redfern with a point saying, in many, many businesses I've entered, they have a sign that says we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, so the refusal is seen as a right. I will say that I think that the creation and speech involved with it is the very important part, because if something exists, if you're just basically saying, I won't do business with you because of X, and again, say it was something off the shelf, I won't sell you this painting that I've already made, that kind of a thing. So an act of creation along with it that would be discriminatory in my mind, and based on this ruling from the brief review I've done of it and actually delving into the language so far. But similar thing, and because I've seen that same argument was used during the time of, well, frankly, Jim Crow, to say, well, we're a restaurant, we decided to refuse service to anyone that we don't want to, including insert absolutely protected category here. And in that case, I mean, it was argued that, well, we don't have to make you food. that kind of a thing. But again, the aspect of speech that is involved with it as well, I think is very important concepts. I've seen some of the reaction to this so far, among other things, including saying that, well, I'm just going to refuse to do business with anyone I don't agree with. And I think that is a reaction to this decision so far, and don't necessarily know that's going to be the right one to come out of this. You're certainly welcome to disagree with the way that it was put forth. I mean, there's even some opinions out there that are now putting forth that this will be putting the idea of gay marriage itself under threat. So there's sure be a lot of commentary and more response coming out of this. Again, no one, I think, would be totally possessed of the idea that Supreme Court decisions are not impacting their own right, but probably take a little bit more time to digest this and see what the actual implications are going to be, and the way, among other things, legislators and state governments end up going against it. So let's go ahead and dive back into those phone lines here as we're getting towards the end of the program here. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeastern line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, I agree wholeheartedly with Eric. And you know what? Trump and those people who attack the Capitol and people who support them are traitors and terrorists. What do you call them?
I mean, anyone who was wandering into the Capitol building and think that would be okay is at least a fool in my mind. But overall, if you're trying to say that it was, I mean, I disagree with the characterization of it being a coup, an insurrection. I think there were a few people that definitely had some very bad intentions in mind and absolutely should be held accountable. But to say that the entire gathered crowd there was there for the purpose of overthrowing the United States government just doesn't bear out in my mind.
That's not what the impeachment hearing found. That's not what the 1-6 committee found. And I'm almost certain that's not what Special Counsel Jack Smith is going to find either. Trump clearly planned, executed a coup. And it was a 7-part plan. That was just one part of it. That was a last-ditch attempt to stay in power. He had 6 other strategies in there that included the fake electors, that included going to the courts, that included trying to get the Justice Department to back him up. 7, it included the military, wanting the military to seize voting machines. So this is just not one thing, Andrew. So what do you call it? If all that is true, Andrew, it's still not a coup?
I mean, you're talking about something, I mean, okay, if you want to talk about if a coup is a coup or not, or a coup attempt, as I'm sure you're going to be getting at here, I mean, did it work? Did any of these things? I mean, the courts routinely rejected the assertions, mostly for lack of standing, if I'm not mistaken, outside of any specific ones here. And frankly, anyone who ends up saying that, well, no, there ends up being way too many cockamamie theories that come along with this about how, I mean, what was it that the Kraken falling as we were closer to the start of this particular term of office, that end up being, okay, it's so much cope. That's what it ends up seeming like to me. If they, no, we didn't really lose, and here is why. And whether the president was possessed of that reasoning or not, again, the president, former president in that case, president at the time, being the right way to put it, absolutely is a very egotistical person. No one that has ever been on reality TV shows, you're never going to convince me that, not having at least a little bit of ego involved with it. That's just not how that thing works. So for him to say that, no, I mean, he also is pretty much on record for never actually apologizing about things or like admitting wrong, saying that, well, or even like being mistaken about things. So no, I'm not surprised at the way that the specific actions that was taken by the former president or the way that he went about it and saying it, because saying that if there was anything that was proven out during his presidency is if there is a possibility of it working, whether it's considered decorum or precedent or not, he was willing to at least entertain it, if not end up following through with it. So, I mean, I get it. You don't like the former president and you want to see him go away forever, whether it be legally or otherwise. I don't think that's any particular secret between us or the rest of the listening audience on this point here. I do believe we still have that standing bet on whether or not there will actually be criminal charges coming out of the actions happening on January 6th. Yes, the committee hearings and the sessions, that is the way they were televised, were very much focused on linking the former president to the activities of it there. But some of the central questions that come out of it about culpability and the ability or what the responsibility was with the former president to take action on that day. And I'm not saying anything he did was particularly smart, don't get me wrong. The statements he made about how we love you, go home in peace, those kind of things is, again, boneheaded at best. And anyone saying that was that was a good statement is not going to be a reasonable or an unbiased person in this case when it comes to that. But if you're truly saying that, therefore, this guy needs to be, strung up by the yardarm or anything along those lines, when it comes to the actions from that day or a lack of action, the inaction of, calling for the National Guard or any of those yarns that we've definitely wound out here at this point, I don't think that that's the avenue that is going to get you the results that you ultimately end up wanting in this situation.
Well, how do you know what I want? You know what I want? Lock him up. Okay, just like he was chanting for all these other people when he's weaponizing the Justice Department. Now, on another issue, on the education thing, these privileged elites over there on the Supreme Court, those guys are something else, especially Uncle Thomas and now Alito, and then Roberts finding out how his wife was getting jobs for attorneys at high-end law firms, making millions and millions of dollars from it. They're really something special, those folks, let me tell you, but special hypocrites. Now, it might be, in my opinion, the reason that Hispanics and Latinos and blacks have 1/10 the wealth of white people is because of a long, long history of discrimination, of segregation, of unequal schools, of an unequal justice system. It's interesting to me. It seems like the right is just discovering that there is an unequal justice system, and they think that because Trump is being pursued by the law, being held accountable, that all of a sudden now, the justice system is unequal. But it was never all that equal for blacks and Hispanics. And again, this country did not and still does not provide an equal opportunity to every American. And again, the figures tell the story.
I'm not going to disagree with you, frankly, on the idea that we have quite the history of things not being equally applied, whether it's concepts of justice, accessibility, basic human rights in this country. The civil rights marches didn't come out because a bunch of people decided, I think that we just need to be mad today. No, there were real and documentable injustices that were happening. And I mean, that's part of the whole more perfect union part that is needing to be achieved whenever we talk about the founding and the purpose behind the entire American experiment. And anyone saying, well, it's fine the way it is probably not one of the people that are having the issues or upset about it. But let's just put it this way, within the Supreme Court, and don't think I didn't hear that reference there to the Supreme Court Justice Thomas, but let's just put it this way. They have made the decision. Whether or not there is then decisions being made against that, it's going to take a little bit of time probably to suss out, see if things are going to be filed or actually have the ability to move forward, whether it comes to justice in general, like you're talking about, or in the specific ones, such as, again, affirmative action, colleges, schools, etc. Not going to hold my breath on that happening immediately or again this term of Congress before 2024, because I would just be very surprised when it comes to that. But it's also interesting that you don't end up agreeing with Eric on that point about there being aspects of unequal justice within this country and the idea of there being different ways that it is being applied or not in certain historic and unfortunately widespread cases. I mean, the fact that lynchings and lynch mobs were a concept that is still easily referenceable to this day is a vestige of our history, a shameful one, and one that does need to be confronted, recognized, and overcome. Because if we don't, one of those things, the phrase that sticks with me, those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, though there's a corollary. I've heard that those that study history are therefore doomed to watch everyone else that doesn't repeat the same mistakes. So anything, if you're going to be saying that, you want justice to be done, and I was not surprised that you have the what you want to be done with the former president. And if you're calling me saying, how would I know about that? See previous conversations. I'll just put it that way. But again, other things and the other things that he's been accused of in other circumstances would fully support the full investigation. And I don't even think that they should be dismissed at this point, because that would leave, frankly, I think for the American people and concepts in general, too many questions. They deserve, and we deserve, to have them fully investigated and adjudicated. Finally, I think that's about the only reasonable resolution that could be expected at this point in time. So tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. And so coming out of this break, we'll tell you a little bit more about it coming up for you on the show here. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A vehicle fire causing delays on Joe Battle northbound at Bob Hope. This is blocking the left lane and the exit ramp at the scene. You might want to take an alternate route, such as a surface streets like Zaragoza. Also, a medical emergency fire crews on scene Yarborough, north of Alameda at San Jose Road. You could use Lafayette as an alternate route there to avoid slowing. That's your latest traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
This week on Red Pilled America, we talked to former Deputy Assistant to President Trump, none other than Sebastian Gorka himself. He has a unique insight that we think you're going to want to hear. Join the independent media revolution and listen to Red Pilled America anywhere you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Thank you again, El Paso, for making us #1 year-to-date in new car sales. As a gesture of gratitude, we're offering huge savings on all new and certified pre-owned vehicles. More for your trade with no payments for 90 days.
Thank you, boss man. This week at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Get $10,000 off MSRP on remaining 2022 Grand Wagoneer SUVs. Get $6,000 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator trucks. Get $1,000 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Wrangler Sport and Sahara. Plus, super low 2.8% APR for 72 months on 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie and Lone Star trucks. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our aggressive lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. It's the season of huge savings at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and I-10 at Sunland Park Drive, or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate dealer discount plus GTNL. 2.9% APR. 50/50 per 1,000 finance. Select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk, and of course, Talk El Paso, brought to you in part by Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, 950 Crockett Street, right across Sunland Park, from Sunland Park Mall, across I-10. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and Ruli's International Kitchen. A great little gourmet dive, not too far down the street from us at 4176 North Mesa Street. And of course, they got some specials going on every day. Was there myself yesterday, and definitely worth checking out. Give them a call at 915-313-4806, Ruli's International Kitchen. So, a couple of notes here. Of course, we mentioned the July 4th holiday. We are going to be off at the start of this coming week. So Monday and Tuesday, we'll have some fill-in programming for you, and then back at it live for you Wednesday. And some of the things we're working on here, I've mentioned the article that was being locally reported on from El Paso Matters, the visit that founder and CEO Bob Moore took down to the Darien Gap on the Panama side of it, particularly, and what it reveals about the immigration issues and things like that. So that's one of the things we got coming up for you next week here. So until then, of course, on the El Paso History Radio Show coming up tomorrow, getting a little bit contemporary, but still very much focused on the history. We got coming on to you for that show, 10 to noon here on News Radio 690 KTSM. We've got Scooter from the West Texas Motors, the Tex-Mex Motors. I keep saying it the wrong way. Yeah, Marcos Scooter Carrera, co-creator and car scout with Tex-Mex Motors. The series now streaming on Netflix. Talking with him about the history, why these cars, and of course the interest that it brings into it in our area, along with Bernie Esparza, an auto technician in our area who's worked on the classic cars. Also talking about the classic car culture, lowriders, all of that good stuff. That for you tomorrow on the El Paso History Radio Show. But we'll have to leave it there for today because we are super out of time. I do want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. If you want to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland, that's what we do, and we'll continue to do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. So until then, until next time, until next week, after Wednesday, that is, I want y'all to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow or next week.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A vehicle fire causing delays on Joe Battle northbound at Bob Hope. This is blocking the left lane and the exit ramp at the scene. You might want to take an alternate route, such as a surface streets like Zaragoza. Also, a medical emergency fire crews on scene Yarborough, north of Alameda at San Jose Road. You could use Lafayette as an alternate route there to avoid slowing. That's your latest traffic.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Getting a news feed on your phone while driving
makes driving more difficult.
This is dangerous.
Getting a news feed without a computer or mobile device?
It would be impossible.
Unless, of course, you get your live news feeds at the top and bottom of the hour.
It's easy.
Traffic and weather all day.
It's as simple as that.
Trending stories tend to change.
Every minute of every day.
Twice an hour, we'll feed your curiosity.
Stay informed. Shouldn't we listen? They're hungry.
News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay informed at KTSMradio.com. News on the hour and the half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The Supreme Court is shooting down President Biden's plan to forgive student loan debt. The High Court today ruled the president exceeded his authority with his plan to forgive more than $400 billion in federal student loan debt. Melissa Byrne is part of a group who wants student loan debt canceled.
40 million families are counting on student loan relief, and we should not let right-wing cruel AGs stand in the way between a promise and justice.
The justices in the 6-3 decision said the program was an unlawful exercise of presidential power because it had not been approved by Congress. Meantime, the Biden administration is plotting a new course that includes using the Higher Education Act, which the administration says will allow Education Secretary Miguel Cardona to compromise, waive, or release loans under certain circumstances. A record amount of travel is expected over this 4th of July weekend. AAA projects more than 50 million Americans will travel at least 50 miles from home. According to a release from the organization, that would overtake the previous record of 49 million set in 2019 before the COVID pandemic. AAA also expects to hit new records for the number of those traveling by car, with over 43 million expected to drive to their destination. A man wanted on charges related to the January 6th Capitol riots has been arrested in former President Obama's Washington, D.C. neighborhood. Lisa Taylor has the details.
Reports say Taylor Toronto was apprehended with multiple weapons. The Metropolitan Police Department says officers did a sweep of Toronto's van near his arrest and said there was no active threat to the community. I'm Lisa Taylor.
A new report is criticizing both the Trump and Biden administrations for decisions that led to the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
Get your tickets now
at AXS.com
for our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Coming back to Las Vegas.
2 nights.
September 22nd and 23rd.
1 stage.
At T-Mobile Arena.
Streaming live only on Hulu.
This is the iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Buy your tickets for our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival now.
Before they sell out.
At AXS.com.
That's AXS.com.
From iHeart Podcast, Supreme, The Battle for Roe, tells the story of the unlikely champions behind the landmark case Roe v. Wade. Starring Maya Hawke as 26-year-old lead attorney Sarah Weddington.
We're challenging the Texas abortion laws in federal court.
And Academy Award nominee William H. Macy as Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun.
Time is not the most important factor. Getting it right is.
Listen to the podcast Supreme, The Battle for Roe on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Is foot pain making your life miserable? The Good Feet Store wants to help. We invite you to visit our store at Airway Boulevard at I-10 for a free fitting and test walk and learn more about how the Good Feet Store can help you find relief. The Good Feet Store.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
Rover's Morning Glory.
It's The Woody Show.
It's Elliot in the Morning.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
iHeartRadio Music Festival.
All of the best free curated playlists.
It's everything that rocks.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
This is Freddie Prinze Jr. from the Wrestling with Freddie podcast.
All of the mind-blowing content.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Tired of wasting your money on testosterone booster products that just don't work? We don't blame you. That's why Nugenix Total T lets you try before you buy. Just text ENERGY to 3 369-369 to claim your complimentary sample. Why have millions of men already trusted Nugenix for a man-boosting increase in their testosterone levels? Well, nothing else is like it. It contains testofen, a patented key ingredient shown to work. Nugenix Total T boosts free and total testosterone levels to help you feel better at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom. It's the #1 doctor-recommended brand and #1 at GNC and #1 at Walmart. But don't take our word for it. Try before you buy. If it works, keep using it. If not, keep the sample. You've got nothing to lose, but you could gain energy, muscle, drive, even more passion. Text ENERGY to 369-369. Do it now, and we'll also send you a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, our newest, most powerful fat burner ever. Absolutely free. Text ENERGY to 369-369.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
No, not now. That sounds like it's going to cost you.
I know what to do. I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, I could have the money in my account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
There are choices that can change your life.
Like the choice to start routine colorectal cancer screening at age 45.
It's one of the most common cancers for women and men, and it doesn't always have symptoms.
But there's good news. Routine screening can catch colorectal cancer early and even prevent it.
And there's even better news. You have screening options.
Make the choice to put your health first. Talk to your doctor about your screening options or visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
My mom and dad are the best. Ever since they called the Early Childhood Program, I'm doing so much better, and Mom and Dad don't worry or stress as much as they used to. They seem a bazillion times happier, and all services are free.
Parenting isn't easy, so we signed up for the free Early Childhood Program at the El Paso Center for Children. They taught us how to deal with COVID-19 stress and be better parents. Lots of other free services are available. Call 915-500-4105. That's 500-4105.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A vehicle fire and cleanup stage reported on Joe Battle northbound at Bob Hope, blocking the left lane. Expect slowing approaching and a minor backup. And police activity was reported on Santa Fe Street, just north.